Greetings YouTube once again, I am Efring225 and I am here to bring you my first playthrough of the year 2021, and the game in question is going to be a Mario game. Kind of interesting, I don't think I've played a whole lot of Mario games on my YouTube channel, but I think it's time to rectify that once and for all. We're gonna have a playthrough of the original Super Mario Bros. To be specific, the version included in the SNES compilation Super Mario All-Stars, which was eventually re-released again in order to include Super Mario World, but that's irrelevant for the moment. So yes, everybody has played this game. Like, if you've touched video games in your life whatsoever, I think at some point you'll run across the original Super Mario Bros. It's well known at this point. This is the game that saved video games back in the 80s. Like, after that whole video game crash thing, everyone thought it was over. And then this game comes along. Now, the original Super Mario Bros. Is actually a little bit difficult to get into. Like, if you've never played a Mario game in your life, I don't think this is a good start because the physics are actually, like, not as robust as in, like, even the immediate next Mario game after this, Super Mario Bros. 2, had much nicer physics. Jumps in the original Super Mario Bros. Are a lot more committal. I think if you're a big-time Castlevania player, you'll be used to that, but I was not at the time, so back when I played this the first time. So I was actually a lot more interested in the later Super Mario Bros. Titles when I was a kid. But here I am playing Super Mario Bros. 1 again, and, you know, it still kind of holds up after all this time, or at least this version does. The All-Stars version, it has much, much nicer graphics, because not only are we on the SNES, you can just tell, like, just compare it to a screenshot of the original version. This version has actual backgrounds and a bunch of other nice things about it. There are music tracks that weren't included in the original. Like, other than that, though, it's a pretty straight remake. Well, actually, there is one aspect of the physics that does not match up with the original version of the game. Whenever you hit a brick in this version, you kind of, like, if you hit it at a certain angle, you will kind of glide upwards after hitting it, which doesn't make sense at all. That problem didn't exist in the original Super Mario Bros., like, on the NES. There's a patch to fix that in this version, but I decided not to install it because I wanted the pure All-Stars experience, if that makes sense. So yeah, at this point you might have noticed something is a little bit different from what you remember, even if you have played this version of the game. As that star next to the World 1-3 in the top of the screen indicates, we are actually playing this on hard mode. Yes, there is a hard mode in Super Mario Bros. If you beat the game once, then the game adds a little star next to the stage indicator, which means that you are playing on hard mode, which has a number of changes throughout the early stages of the game. For one thing, all of the Goombas have been replaced with Buzzy Beetles, which are a much harder enemy to deal with because you can't shoot fireballs at them. But, you know, all in all, if you take all of the stages as a whole, like, as you get further and further in the game on hard mode, you start to notice that things aren't that different from the original versions of those levels. But for these early stages, they definitely take a huge spike in difficulty, because you have this room, which has those two additional fireballs bouncing around in the lava. That's probably my most hated enemy in this game, because they are just so unpredictable. There's no, like, pattern to when they jump up like that. So yes, as you saw back in 1-3, I have to go back and explain a bunch of things that we just, like, played past already, but, that's unfortunate. I've taken the first hit right there. So, oh yeah, there's an invisible coin block there. I have no idea why that's there. It doesn't seem to serve any sort of purpose except to be, surprise, there are invisible coin blocks in Mario 1. Those are going to get very, very annoying. Oh man, invisible coin blocks, that takes me back. So, did anyone notice that Bowser shot a fireball backwards there for a moment? I don't know what's going on. So yes, about the changes in hard mode, not only are all the Goombas replaced with Buzzy Beetles, but you noticed in 1-3 that there were bullet bills flying around randomly. That's not something that happens on normal mode. That's hard mode only. And there are also going to be a lot more of the annoying Hammer Brothers way earlier than they would have appeared on the normal mode. So, yeah. For somebody like me, I've probably played this so many times that, like, I can deal with that, but, you know, I decided if I'm gonna play through this on YouTube, I should probably do something to spice it up a little bit, and I thought, okay, let's do hard mode. Like, I don't know how much different that's going to be, but, you know, I decided to go ahead and do it. Also, pay no attention to the fact that my score and my coins just dropped. I definitely did not edit out a game over. No, sir. So yeah, I don't really care too much for coins. It doesn't really take me that many extra lives to get through a world. And if you game over in any world, you have to start back at the beginning of that world. So extra lives do kind of matter in a Mario game, the first Mario game, if none of the others do. But yeah, I don't really need extra lives for anything, so I skip most of the extra lives. I don't get the hidden 1-up mushrooms. I've probably missed like 2 or 3 of them. And we have the first of only 3 water levels in this game. There were actually a lot less water levels than I remember. In fact, one of those water levels isn't even a full stage, it's just a section of a stage. Anyways, we're introduced to the most annoying enemy in the game. Well, second most annoying. I think the fireballs are worse. But these guys are called bloopers, and you know, they can be very unpredictable because you never know when they're going to swim upwards, you never know what direction they're going to swim in, and they always seem to be blocking important points for you to pass through. And there are a lot of them. I think this is way more than there would normally be, so I think hard mode ups the ante on how many of them are in the underwater levels. But I actually think I have figured out the trick to maneuvering past them. You see, they tend to go in the direction that you are moving, so I think that's the trick to getting past them. Like, these two are moving in opposite directions, but as you'll see, they quickly switch back to going in the same direction, and if I turned around, they would suddenly start going in the opposite direction. So I don't know, I'll try and work out their AI later and write a text post about it or something, unless somebody else has already figured it out. Like, this has been around for 35 years, so I think at this point, people would have figured out everything there is to know about the original Super Mario Brothers. Yeah. I mean, the speedrun is what, under 5 minutes now? Anyways, moving on to 2-3, this is one of the actually pretty stressful stages. Like, there are some really stressful stages, even when you're not on hard mode, like, handling your jumps on platforms like this. Like, there's some really dangerous jumps later on. Like this one right here, this could be pretty difficult. And it's all because your jumps are more committal than they would be in later Super Mario Brothers games. And of course, you have to watch out for the flying fish. I have no idea how I survived that without taking a hit. I guess they have really awful hit detection. Which is good for me because, you know, I prefer it that way. That way it's easier to avoid them. Alright, World 2-4. 2-4 is actually a pretty troublesome stage on hard mode because, like, it's an exact copy of 5-4 from the original, I think. You've not only got these unpredictable fireballs, but you've got the long fire bar. I do not believe that fire bar was there originally. Like, either it was a short fire bar or it was just not there in the normal version of the stage. But, yeah. Like, on 5-4, there's definitely a long bar there, and that's annoying to deal with too, but even on normal mode, I don't think the fireballs were there. Anyways, moving on. You can kind of jump on top of that platform there, but you just gotta be careful where you land, because there's fireballs everywhere, there's Bowser shooting off fireballs, you got a fire bar guarding some coins. Yeah, these fortress levels are actually really dangerous. When you can only take 2 hits before losing a life, like, that is actually tougher than it seems. But given enough practice, you know, you'll eventually get to the point where you can beat it over and over again like I can. And of course, when you have fireballs, it's very easy to deal with Bowser himself, or I should say the thing disguised as Bowser, because except for the final Bowser fight, all of the Bowsers throughout the rest of the castles, they're actually enemies in disguise, but you'd only know that if you shoot fireballs at them to defeat them. But yeah, with fireballs, pretty easy. You just gotta stand back and shoot at him over and over again. Oh, that was a close shave with that Buzzy Beetle there. And another close shave with the Buzzy Beetle there, too. Having a nice time here already. So yeah, don't make the mistake of thinking that you can swim in that water, by the way. Somebody who has played the later Super Mario Brothers games might not know that. I.e. me when I was 4. I have made that mistake before. Is this the first level to introduce Hammer Brothers? That sequence of platforms there kind of seemed built for Hammer Brothers. But I don't recall them being on the normal version of the stage. Seems like they are only in hard mode. Well, Hammer Brothers are, of course, extremely difficult without the fireballs to just shoot at them with. Oh, and this is the staircase where you can perform the infinite 1-up trick, but I'm not sure if it works in the All-Stars version of the game. I think it does, but I'm not sure. Like, they fixed a lot of bugs from the original Super Mario Brothers because it's a complete rework from the ground up. Of course, there's not going to be as many bugs. But, yeah, I don't recall the infinite one-up trick being there. Like, it seems weird to have a version of this game that doesn't have the infinite one-up trick because that's kind of a thing that they pride themselves as having because there's references to it in all sorts of other Nintendo media. But yes, I've gotten an Invincibility Star, and I'm just running through these guys. The Invincibility Stars just don't seem to last all that long, to be totally honest. Alright. So I believe that's the end of 3-2. Odd to have a stage, like, what I'm thinking of here is, like, the stages all seem to have a pattern. Like, every world has a sort of formula to it. First, you've got an overworld stage, then you've got an underground stage or an underwater stage, and now for the third stage of the world, it's a sky stage with a lot of pits. And then the fourth stage is, of course, the castle, but World 3 just had 2 overworld stages for the first 2 stages. Oh, and since we're here now, like, I can finally mention something that is changed on hard mode. These platforms that you see here, like all of the ones on the pulleys and all of the floating platforms, they are normally twice as big in normal mode, but in hard mode they have shrunken to half their original size. And that's going to make things very stress-inducing. Like sometimes I would just have like this jolt of stress. Jolt of stress, that's a weird way to put it, I guess, but like whenever I have to deal with those platforms, sometimes I will just have like this real scare moment where I think I'm going to fall off or not make it, but then I do anyways. Because like I was just barely far enough in order to do it. And look at this section. This section is a lot easier than the one at the beginning of 2-4, in my opinion. So I guess hard mode decided not to do anything with those fire bars. Thank goodness. This is actually a pretty easy fortress level in my opinion, but of course, now that I've said that, I'm probably going to get hit at some point here. These fireballs just add a lot of tension, because there's just so much you gotta deal with in this part. You can either take it patiently or go recklessly like I did and take a hit. So I just run under Bowser for this fight and touch the axe in order to cause the bridge to collapse. I got no idea how that works. Maybe Mario takes the axe and uses it to smash the bridge. You know, people have been making jokes about this the entire time. Of course, if you were playing I Wanna Be the Guy, you know, jumping into that axe would probably cause you to die because you jumped into an axe, you dummy. Alright, on to World 4. This world introduces another annoying enemy, the Lakitu, as they are called. That's not even what they're called in Japan. They're called Jugans for some reason. Like, I got no idea. But they are annoying because they send out these spiny enemies which are vulnerable to fireballs at least. So if you've got that, you're good to go. You just fireball them over and over. But sometimes these Lakitus get paired with very difficult terrain that makes it hard to avoid the spinies. And also on occasion they will throw out 2 spinies at once. And the worst part is, if you manage to destroy them, they don't always stay dead permanently. I think there are specific points in the stage where the games will just spawn another Lakitu if there is not one already on screen, but that doesn't apply to all stages, oddly enough. So moving on to 4-2, this is a stage that you have probably seen a lot of if you are a speedrunner, because you have to pass through here on your way to the final stage. So after jumping past a couple of platforms, and there's a hidden coin brick in there somewhere, but I'm not going to break through all of the bricks in order to find it, no way. This is another section that is made a teensy bit more difficult on hard mode, because that's a very tight space to slip past the Buzzy Beetles in. And I guess it's not much different if you've got Goombas to deal with, but yeah. Right, so the hidden exit to this stage, I'm going to show you where the hidden exit is, even though I'm not going to take it. This is a warpless run, in case you couldn't tell. But yeah, that vine will take you up to a warp zone, which will take you to World 8, if you wish, which is the final world. Yeah, so warp zones are a thing that you find mainly by jumping on top of these bricks like this, and then just running all the way to the right. Like, eventually you come across the pipes for it, and they will let you skip levels. The original warps, the original level skips, takes me back a long, long time. So naturally, oh, this is a difficult pit too, by the way, because if you fall in there, you've got an enemy that you can't deal with using fireballs. And it'll also just be bouncing back and forth between those two walls. Not a lot of space to maneuver in at all. You do not want to fall in that pit. That is the most innocent looking death pit of all video game history, I must say. Alright, so 4-3 is nice because it has a very unique appearance. Like, even in the original version, I think it uses a tile set that looks like this one. So yeah, there's going to be a lot more tricky jumps here. You have to run and jump in order to clear this gap. And then we move on, and we find another one of those pulleys. Like, that's another one that you can just barely get onto without running and jumping. Right, so I've collected 100 coins for an extra life that I don't need. I just felt like pointing that out. So yeah, you've definitely got to get into a habit of using those pulleys to give yourself better platforms than I did just now, because that was a very risky jump that I had to make. You have to run and jump and then hope that you don't hit your head on the pulley and then get sent plummeting to your doom. Like, I think it's a lot more well, it's a lot less dangerous than it looks, I should say, but it does look very dangerous, which is why I was, like, sweating like mad as I was playing some of these. And that stage also did not get altered a whole lot by hard mode, I must say. Anyways, World 4-4 is the first maze castle. You have to take the top path in this section of the level, and then you have to take the bottom path, I believe, in this upcoming section of the level. Otherwise, the game just loops back to the beginning of the stage, and you have to do it all over again. It's not so bad in 4-4 because there are only 2 path choices you have to make, and eventually you'd be able to work out which one you're supposed to go through, and it's a very short level if you do not make any mistakes. So yeah, I'm just going to fight Bowser with fireballs yet again. It was a spiny this time, how appropriate. And then we save yet another toad and move on. Now, the maze levels in 7-4 and 8-4, those are just, like, I have no idea how you're supposed to pass those the first time without a guide. Like that, like, 4-4 was tolerable, but on 7-4, and especially 8-4, like, those are just not, you wouldn't see that in a modern Mario game, I don't think. Not that you would see a modern Mario game very often anyways. The last time we had a side-scrolling Mario was what? Like when they tried to like just make new Super Mario Brothers over and over again on every console? Yeah. Like I struggle to find... Oh, here's a pipe that doesn't seem like it should go anywhere physically, but for some reason it just sent me into a bonus room. Like it doesn't really seem like a pipe floating above the ground should go into a tunnel like that, but it did. There you go. Also, this is where normal mode would introduce you to bullet bills, in case you were wondering. So yeah, I don't know about you guys, but I kind of struggle to, like, get into some of the later Mario games. Like, I just got Mario Odyssey, and I'm having fun with that, but, like, I don't know. I was never, like, the biggest fan of the 3D Mario games, at least compared to 2D Mario. And with 2D Mario, it took them forever to make new Super Mario Brothers for the DS, and that was pretty okay, but then they just... Oh, this is a very difficult Hammer Brother, by the way. So let me just talk while I unceremoniously kill him. Yeah, that was very difficult. You have to, like, slip in under that arc of hammers and then shoot off the fireball. And then, surprise, there was another one. I don't recall that being there in the normal mode, so that was probably a hard mode thing. And there's even more of them here. Yeah. I guess 5-2 is where the Hammer Brothers start making their presence known. Anyways, after they made new Super Mario Brothers for the Nintendo DS, they kind of just started spamming new Super Mario Brothers over and over again with, like, the same music and graphics and everything. And I'm like, these guys, they did such a good job with this All-Stars compilation that, like, they had to reinvent Super Mario Brothers for the third game in the series. And, like, Super Mario World was such a huge change, and then Yoshi's Island gave us a Yoshi game for the first time. So, like, are they just out of ideas for, like, really reinventing the platformers? I don't know for sure. Speaking of compilations, like, there's been a bit of controversy over the 3D All-Stars compilation. Like, all I'm gonna say is they had to remake 4 separate games for this All-Stars compilation on the Super Nintendo. And they even made some small, like, nice changes to Super Mario World when it was included in this compilation. So, you know, I got no idea. I guess the Nintendo of today is not the Nintendo of yesterday. It's kind of sad. But anyways, getting away from depressing topics, we are up to World 5-4, which was the level that I was complaining about back in 2-4. It's very, very tricky your first time down because you have to deal with another one of those long bars when the stage starts. So that'll be interesting to get around, hopefully. Yeah, it looks exactly like 2-4, to be totally honest. In fact, this whole stage probably seems like it too. They copied and pasted a lot of like sections of levels in the original NES Super Mario Bros. Because like there wasn't a lot of cartridge space for holding all of the level data. So of course they had to recycle a couple of screens and stuff, and a couple of stages even, with small changes in order to like create new levels, but like still stay within their cartridge space limitations. And as you can see, the unpredictability of the fireball has caught me. I probably should have just run through and used my invincibility frames to get past Bowser, but I decided to play it safe in case I didn't have enough time and jump up on the platform to get around him that way instead. So we're up to World 6, and this is where I would say Bowser starts getting serious about fighting off Mario. I wish he would stay serious about that throughout the rest of the series, but, you know. Yeah, he's such a lovable loser, that Bowser. Alright, so we have another Lakitu stage, and there's a double Spiny, like I was talking about earlier. But anyways, I've KO'd the Lakitu in the first part of the level, but he's eventually going to respawn at some point. Yeah, I thought there might be something in those bricks, but turns out there wasn't. Anyways, yep, here's the second Lakitu, and he's too high up to bounce on him this time. I think if you had a firepower, I think if you had a fire flower, you might be able to jump up and shoot him with a fireball, but I decided not to for some reason. Instead, I took an unnecessary risk. That was a very close shave with the Spiny. Alright, so 6-2. I believe it's another overworld level. Like, there's an underwater level in 7-2. And then one last underwater section after that. Underwater sections are just not used that much. I had no idea that this bonus pipe was here, by the way. I just randomly tried the pipe, and surprise, there it was. I can't say I know a whole lot about levels, like, before World 5, because, like, whenever I play this, I just skip to World 8. Like, it's actually rare for me to play a no-warp playthrough. So, I had no idea that pipe would be there, but it's nice. And as you can see, fire works very effectively against plants, even when they eventually learn to shoot fireballs. Alright, so what is this? The pipe stage or something? There's just so many pipes. Anyways, that's the end of 6-2, on to 6-3. Gosh, I've been talking over this game for so long now. I probably shouldn't have tried to marathon the entire playthrough. Like, obviously this playthrough was done in under an hour, but like, I haven't done one of these playthroughs in a while, to be honest. Or a commentary, rather, I should say. Alright, so we have another aerial stage with lots and lots of pits. You gotta be very, very careful with these platforms, especially with hard mode having their size. This is another tricky platform to get past. I had no idea that I would actually make it up there. Alright. Oh, and there are bullet bills in this stage. There were not bullet bills in the first half of the stage, but there are now. You know, they rarely ever manage to hit me with one of those bullet bills. I think they're just there to increase the tension without actually threatening your position. And that is 6-3 done. Then it's just 6-4, and we will only have 2 more worlds left to go. And if you're thinking that this game looks hard, trust me when I say that Lost Levels is infinitely worse. And I don't know if I will actually play through that because it's been forever since I played Lost Levels at all. But according to certain people, if you are a YouTube Let's Player, you must have playthroughs on your channel of either Lost Levels or I Want to Be the Guy and a Mega Man game. And I've got plenty of Mega Man on my channel. By the way, that was the first death on camera, in case you were wondering. So yeah, this is a little bit tricky. It's the same kind of situation as... yeah. I made a mistake here too. There's just so many fire bars and fireballs at this point that it's very difficult to get past all of them, and I can't even get Fire Mario for the boss now. That's unfortunate. Right. So I just have to wait for the right moment in order to get past this, so I apologize, but like it's impossible to tell when is a good time to run and when is a good time to not run. Alright, so just run under these. These aren't a threat at all, but these are tricky. They give you no room for error there. Alright. So, I at least still have my mushroom, and Bowser is now throwing hammers, by the way. He eventually resorts to that as well. So yeah, if you don't want to deal with the boss at all, it's entirely possible to just take a hit and use the invincibility frames to get past him. Alright, 2 more worlds to go, and 7-1 is... yeah, it's where things kind of get really, really difficult. Because welcome to the Hammer Brother homeworld. One of these Hammer Brothers is not going to be able to, like, go home to his grandson or whatever. The guy from Thousand Year Door who talks about World 7-1. Yeah, I remember that very specific reference for some reason. Sometimes these Hammer Brothers are guarding mushrooms and fire flowers, but you would have to, like, go through every single brick in order to find it, if it's even there, and it's not always there. So I just run past some of them. I know where the mushroom is for this stage. It's right up there. You have to jump on that spring in order to hit it. And I think that's another location where you could do the infinite 1-up trick, but only in hard mode, because the Buzzy Beetle would instead be a Goomba. Unless it's always a Buzzy Beetle, in which case I have no idea what I'm talking about. I can't remember everything about this game, now can I? Alright, second water level. Yeah, as I said before, water levels are surprisingly underused. And this isn't even one of those situations where swimming is more painful than just playing normally. Swimming is actually very well done in the original Super Mario Bros. It's not difficult to control at all. You can maneuver past the enemies a decent amount at least. And if you have fireballs, they work underwater too. Don't ask why that is. Don't ask why fireballs work underwater, but, you know, there you go. That's what they do. I swear, the amount of bloopers in this level has gotta be because of hard mode. I don't really remember there being this many, and normally. The fish are, they're decently easy enough to avoid. I think the red ones are faster, but there doesn't seem to be anything that tells you whether or not they're going to be moving up and down. But I guess you can see that with your eyes. Alright, just a little bit more. And we will be out of the water levels for good. Yep, there it is. That's the pipe. And with that, we just have one more level with flying fish to deal with because, yeah, it's interesting that after both of the water levels in this game, it's immediately followed up by a level with flying fish. As if you were above the water and the fish suddenly decided to start jumping after you. It's very weird. Actually, there is going to be one more section with flying fish, so look forward to that. I'm not sure if there's a limit to how many enemies can be on screen at once, or at least how many of these fish can be on screen at once, but it seems to me that if there are at least 3 of them, then the game won't spawn anymore, but I have seen 4 of them on screen at once, so I actually have no idea. Alright, these are some pretty slim platforms, so you gotta be very careful with those. I'm making it look a lot more not tense than it actually is, because this does get tense. Alright, World 7-4. What can be said about this castle level? Well, it starts off with, floating platforms, of course. Yeah, those platforms sink as long as you're standing on them, by the way. Oh, and we have the second maze section, so anybody who's playing through this level, memorize this pattern because I got it right on the first try. I can't believe I remember this from my childhood of all things, but apparently I do. So yes, middle through here. That tone, by the way, that tells you whether or not you've made the correct choice or not, that's only present in the All-Stars version. The original version didn't have it. which is even worse because it would be nice to have a sort of an indication of what you're doing wrong and why the level keeps repeating itself. So yeah, pretty obvious disguise. That had to have been a hammer brother with how many hammers he was throwing. And that just leaves one more world, one more castle, and fortunately it's the world I've played the most often, because I always warped here when I was a kid. I guess I just didn't want to deal with the rest of the game, even though it wasn't as difficult as World 8, and now that I've played World 8 so many times, yeah. Worth noting for this stage that I think this is the only stage in the game where the time limit can actually be a threat. Like, you might not have noticed there was even a timer there. Because who runs out of time in Super Mario Brothers, am I right? The timer is always like hundreds and hundreds of seconds. So it's a bit unheard of to actually run out of time, but I think this is one stage where if you take it too slowly, you could actually run out of time. I've actually had the little alarm go off when you hit 100 seconds. These aren't even seconds, to be honest. They look like half seconds, just based on how quickly they're counting down. Anyways, by this point you've probably realized it, but if you have a 1 block wide gap, you can run across it and you won't fall, like at all. Like, this is going to be important in 8-2 because there is a gap that you cannot pass unless you know this fact. Crazy. Like, that's the one time they pull lost levels in the original Super Mario Brothers. You have to actually know about that mechanic. And we'll be going into 8-2 very soon, so look forward to that. It's the last level to have a Lakitu in it as well, and you can actually kill this one at the very beginning of the level, so it's not even that threatening a Lakitu. These Koopa Troopas that are bouncing around are actually more threatening. I guess you could get hit with a Spiny if you're not careful. But that's the last Lakitu we have to deal with in the original. Oh, that was interesting. I jumped and hit the wrong block. But now I can bounce on top and run across the top of this part of the level. That's nice. So naturally there was a not-so-secret 1-up there. And it's interesting, I think that 1-up actually respawns if you die. Like, I'm not sure. Like, there are 1-ups that I know you can collect only one time, like if they're from an invisible coin block, I think. Like, I'm not really sure about that at all, but I don't care enough about lives to bother finding out. So yes, this is the gap I was talking about. You have to run across that 1 block wide gap and then jump, so that you have enough running speed to make a very far jump across that gap. And that'll be the end of 8-2, I think. Just a little bit more, and there you go. Lucky they don't make me bounce across any enemies in order to get past gaps, like some ROM hackers I know might try. So 8-3 actually has a unique background in the All-Stars version, which is really, really nice. This castle background is so cool, in my opinion anyways. Like, the All-Stars version of these games, they've actually aged really, really well, graphically, I would say. Like, unfortunately, 8-3 in particular, because it uses this background, this unique, cool-looking background, there's actually something that gets lost in translation compared to the original NES version, because there is going to be a coin block later on that was supposed to be hidden inside of the background, sort of, but, you know, it kind of stands out in the original version anyways. Oh, by the way, this is where you have to deal with a lot of Hammer Brothers that you cannot simply run under. You have to deal with them one way or another, and without fireballs, you better be a pro jumper if you want to be able to handle that. I seem to also recall running low on time on this level as a kid as well. But hey, we're up to the final stage of the game. And they've given it a unique background as well for the All-Stars version, with a nice thunder sound effect in the background as well. That's really, really cool. Alright, so this is yet another maze level. You have to actually go down these pipes in the correct order. Or you have to go down the correct pipe, I should say. Or else the level will repeat infinitely. So this pipe right here past that platform is the first pipe you need to go down. And I know for certain where this next pipe is because it's pretty obvious actually. Like, it's the only pipe that you have to jump onto. And yet again, we have a pipe that connects to like a tunnel out of nowhere that teleports us. Because do you see a pipe connecting that to the ground? I sure don't. So now we have another flying fish section. And the pipe you're supposed to go through is this fourth one right here. Like, you would not know any of this without experimenting of course, so not exactly what I would call excellent game design, but what's even less excellent is the fact that there are fire bars underwater. Like, I have no right to complain about these because I'm shooting fireballs underwater, but, like, geez, Bowser just seems to be able to violate the laws of physics. Or unless the Mushroom Kingdom physics are not the same as the real-world physics. Which seems pretty appropriate considering some of the stuff that crops up in the lost levels. One last Hammer Brother to fight past, and then we basically just have the final boss left. Unfortunately, like, I was planning on shooting him with fireballs in order to make this a little bit more epic, or maybe just get past him without taking a hit at all. But I took the hit, that was accidental, so I decided to just use the invincibility frames to finish off the stage, and the entire game, in fact. We have rescued Princess Peach on hard mode. Actually, she was called Toadstool back then, or at least in America she was. She's been Peach all the time in Japan. Anyways, Mario gets his Smoocher victory, and who knows, I might move on to Lost Levels or Super Mario 2, or my all-time favorite, Super Mario 3, definitely deserves a playthrough from me. So, whatever I decide on next, I hope you'll stick around to watch that. Happy New Year, everybody, and I'll see you next time.